I'm back yet again with another Reacts video. This time it's all about how reviews change our perception, how game reviews affect your perception. This one was sent in Daryl Talks Games. You can DM these to me over on Twitter or X at Destin. Let's dive right in.
It's a brisk fall morning in the year 1968. Two researchers have just given a test to all of the students of an elementary school. The teachers are told that this test would determine who among the student body would be sure to bloom. Which of these promising young minds had the most likely chance of becoming a true scholar? Here's the catch. The test didn't mean a damn thing. It didn't evaluate their academic potential. It was actually just a copy of the Declaration of Independence with every instance of the word men replaced with bad bitches. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all bad bitches are created equal. I made that part up.
Yeah.
But the fact remains that the test meant nothing. The point was not to research the students, it was to research the teachers. You see, each instructor was given a small list of kids in their class that were identified by the exam as bloomers, when unbeknownst to the teachers, these kids were just picked at random. The test had nothing to do with it.
I've actually heard of this study where they did it. I'm pretty sure it's real. I've heard of it, but I have not looked too much into it. Also, pretty sure these names are made up. Damn son.
And do you know what happened?
Probably not a real
At the end
name.
of the school year, the researchers came back to check up on these secretly, randomly selected gifted kids. They gave them an IQ test, and sure enough, they showed significantly greater gains than their fellow non-bloomers.
Pygmalion in the classroom. In 1965, the authors conducted an experiment in a public elementary school, telling teachers that certain children could be expected to be growth spurters based on the students' results on the Harvard test of inflected acquisition. In point of fact, this test was non-existent and those children designated as spurters were chosen at random. What Rosenthal and Jacobson hoped to determine by this experiment was the degree, if any, to which changes in teacher expectation produced changes in student achievement.
Students. And do you want to know what's even stranger? This study has been replicated more than a few times with similar results, which begs the question, what the hell does this have to do with game reviews? Well, my friend, you'd be surprised, because video games are like
the too much water thing. There have been videos made about what that was. Alana made a video, but basically what happened was there was a section in the review where they talked about how there were too many water type Pokemon and how a large section of the map was sort of blocked off by water in a obtuse way or something. I don't know. I don't play Pokemon. Go read the original review. And in the box, which no longer exists, it was boiled down to say too much water. Nobody remembers any of that. Nobody has that context because the actual story is really, really boring. Everybody remembers the too much water meme, though. Anyway, let's continue on.
children. This is a weird start. Neither can really be fully defined by a single test or evaluation. You can give a child an exam and you can review a game, but the results of neither of these gives you an all-encompassing truth about the depth of who that child is or will become, much less what that game is, can be, or what it will be to you when you play it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, reviews in my mind are meant to be one person's opinion, hopefully a person you see eye to eye with, and then you can make your purchasing decision based off that review. Like that game that was just all controversial recently, like it got a 1 out of 10, and hopefully people didn't buy it because they ended up having to refund everybody and it was a total disaster. So that's where we're at. Anyway.
Maybe the child had a cold when that exam was administered. Maybe the reviewer of that game is already a massive fan of the series. Maybe that's your favorite series. What do you mean it's only a 7? Maybe that's your favorite child. What do you mean they aren't gifted? The point is, reviews, much like exams, only give us a snapshot of a game.
Yeah, they're subjective. Reviews are subjective. Absolutely true.
That often tell us less about the game itself and more about how people are going to treat that game moving forward. Not to say that all reviews are bullshit or that they don't help us make decisions about game purchases. They certainly do.
This guy's really got it. He gets it. I'm curious where he's going with it.
But they do a lot more than that, whether we consciously realize it or not.
They do?
And that's what I want to talk about today. Because as you're probably thinking after hearing that fake exam study, there is far more to the story here. In preparation for this video, I have pored over more studies about reviews than I ever cared to do again. I have polled you about how often you rely on reviews.
Sometimes, so How often would you say reviews affect your likelihood of playing a game or watching a movie show? Let me know in the comments. Quite often. I pay close attention, 16%. Sometimes. I can't help but consider reviews, 62%. 23,000 people voted in this. That's a lot of votes. Rarely, I don't play much, never. So people usually watch reviews. So what is that? 78% of people usually will use reviews in some capacity.
And I have used reviews far more often than I like to admit for the past year as I've been navigating this whole gaming backlog project that all comes to blows next month. It has not all gone to shit. Relax. And I have compiled all of this here to present to you in an interesting manner today. So without further ado, let's talk about reviews. I should not be doing this professionally. If you're a gamer that pays attention to reviews, and survey says you probably are, one of the first things that comes to mind is likely this whole song and dance. There is a game that comes out, it is reviewed, people are upset, and that's the whole song and dance. It's a very short routine.
Game
but I've
review
kind of
angry.
found over the years that it takes two forms. One is the inevitable questioning of journalistic integrity from large review outlets, accusations of reviewers being paid off for the eventual video like this.
Great. Had to be all about IGN.
Popping up later on down the line. The other form is just buzz from your fellow internet
10 out of 10 game reviews, the truth. Did you go watch that review? Alana basically says no game is perfect. There's nothing wrong with that video that Alana made. I've watched it.
It's popping up later on down the line. The other form is just buzz from your fellow internet schmuck. The Twitter timeline being aglow with every hot take you can imagine. The Steam reviews filled with every variety of impressively well...
Yeah, you know, I kind of stopped doing reviews because I got really tired of it. You have early access to a game, you review it, you put your thoughts out there. Everybody is mad. I remember I reviewed the Game of Thrones Xbox 360 game and I gave it a 4 because it was really bad and everybody was furious. How could you do this? It's a small developer, like da 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 da. I'm like, the game's not that good. It's just not that good. There's nothing more to it than that. I'm not like doing it for the clicks. It was just my impression and everybody gets all riled up about it. And then like you look at something like the Starfield reaction recently and then people kind of coming around and saying, yeah, you know what? Maybe it wasn't the best game ever made. 10 out of 10. 7 does seem somewhat fair. I feel like the tone shifted on that one a little bit. Anyway, reviews are subjective. Like people can love a game or not like a game. This is nothing about this guy's video. I'm just sort of waxing poetic about my experience reviewing stuff.
Well articulated to impressively comedic descriptions of games, but nonetheless, they appear in front of our faces and we have to make sense of them. And one 2019 study categorized these two forms of reviews and tried to understand the discrepancies between the video game press, what they label the experts, and casual gamers, or quote-unquote amateurs. And I think this is an important discrepancy to understand because it's in these differences that I think we find some truth about what reviews actually capture about games and how they affect people. By aggregating over 1 million reviews from Metacritic, the researchers built a large-scale data set of reviews that were from both experts and amateurs. Some of the key findings were that amateurs tend to give much more polarized ratings of games. Amateurs tend to continually rate games surprisingly long after game release and are positive.
Well, yeah, because the second point that the study is making, it's probably because amateurs don't have early access. So they either have to review it later or revisit it because it's like their main game, like Destiny, for example.
Positively biased towards older games. Can't imagine why, but the
Wait, what was that? There's a lot of statistics in here that I actually want to look at.
Positively biased towards older games. Can't imagine.
Relative frequency of usage of nostalgia-related vocabulary in amateur reviews. Oh, they use a lot of nostalgia words. The U.S. age by amateurs of vocabulary related to nostalgia clearly increases over the years, hinting at its importance long after games get released.
Imagine why, but the key takeaways for me came in the post-research discussion where the researchers state that experts employ a clinical, detached writing style which reflects their experience and is reflected in their unimodal rating distribution. Amateurs, on the other hand, use emotionally charged language and award rather extreme ratings. They appear dedicated to either glorify games or express their grievances with them, and at times to signal their disagreement with experts. The writers go on to
Hmm.
say that both amateurs and experts are pretty damn good at predicting a game's actual long-term popularity, so clearly both crowds are playing the same game, but they also believe that gauging overall public opinion of a video game requires adequately discounting the emotion in the often extreme video game ratings and reviews by amateurs to distill actionable feedback for developers. In other words,
Hmm.
both crowds.
Well, I actually think developers watch all reviews and they listen to the criticism and they act accordingly. Like if there's a correction that needs to be made, like any review, amateur or expert in this situation, I absolutely developers look at that. I know the PR team looks at that for sure. And they'll often utilize that feedback to improve a gameplay experience. They even have internal mock reviews that they look at and they're like, oh, maybe we should change X, Y, or Z.
Tend to agree, but there is a portion of the amateur crowd that takes this really personally, and that's something that's rarely found in expert reviews.
Hmm.
For some folks that do write amateur reviews, whether they be properly done here or hurriedly done here, I think we can all agree that sometimes there was a.
See, a review in the study probably isn't Twitter. And I think a lot of people will comment on my Twitter and they'll be like, you're a journalist or something like that. And it's just like, this is my Twitter. It's just my random thoughts about whatever is happening during the day. This isn't like a report, right? I'm not reviewing or like, oh man, I'm having fun with Starfield. Oh, such a great review, Destin. I'm like, it's just a comment. And like that conflation, Twitter being like any sort of official statement it's a little, like just let Destin be Destin, you know, kind of like this channel. This whole channel is just me being me. I'm just trying to be a normal person and talk about things. Anyway.
A bit of actually at play, especially if a respected
Yeah.
reviewer didn't see things your way in regards to a game release you've been salivating over for months. And I think this is a big reason for the outliers, why there is so much more variance in amateur reviews.
Mean rating of genres, developers, and platforms of games with most reviews by both experts and amateurs. In this and all subsequent figures, where applicable, error bars indicate bootstrapped 95% confidence intervals, many of which are too small to be visible, although genre preference appears more universal than platform and specifically developer ones, who observe significant differences in all of them. I mean, like, you probably want somebody who's experienced with Madden reviewing Madden, right? Like, would you want Destin to review Madden? I'm going to say it sucks. I don't like Madden. I mean, maybe I wouldn't say it sucks, but I'm going to be much more detached and clinical about my analysis. Maybe you might think that would be good, but if I'm making a purchasing decision about Madden, I would rather hear from somebody that plays that franchise on a regular basis.
Since the expert reviews come out first, I think it often leaves the rest of us in a reactionary state. If you play a game after seeing a review, your experience with that title is
absolutely. And we just saw this happen with Starfield, right? Most people are reactionary to the reviews. There were a lot of 10 out of 10s. There were a few like sevens and 8s, but people definitely had a feeling about how that one was reviewed.
Is predicated by that review. And so naturally, you're going to either agree or disagree, typically a little more extremely in one direction or the other as you attempt to process what you play. What you have to be careful about is a
self-fulfilling prophecy.
One of the silliest things about video game reviews is that we try to assign a neat little number to them or a
man, he used a lot of IGN stuff.
Star rating that is supposed to sum up at a glance how good it is, just like we would do for these staples around the block. But unfortunately, all the intricacies of Starfield cannot be summed up as easily.
Oh, this was after this. This is after the Starfield stuff. So this will be interesting.
As the poor customer service Cherry got a month ago. Now, of course, many game reviews do carefully describe these intricacies, but we all know damn well we've all been guilty of just checking these numbers and then going about our business.
Yep.
So many games these days are mere living, breathing.
God, Zelda's so good. The games of 2023 were amazing. Like, take Starfield out of the equation. Baldur's Gate, Zelda. if Starfield was a 10 out of 10 for you. Marvel's Spider-Man 2. 2023 was a very, very good year for video games.
Worlds, there will be a different experience for everyone who plays them. And yet we continually try to crunch all of this down to a single quantifiable value because admittedly,
some outlets don't like that. Like Kotaku, I don't think they score their reviews, and they haven't for a long time, because they're like, look, we don't think the number does justice to it. And I think Crescente implemented that, if I'm remembering correctly. But it is really interesting. This is a cool video. I like this. It's really interesting to think about it from this angle.
it's a good conversation starter, but it's also neat and gives our minds a quick, readily understandable metric that we can use to make a judgment call.
My personal problem with the number score is that everything's a 7, right? If it's just good, it's usually a 7. I think he's showing GameSpot here in this particular one, but it's like 7's good, 8's great. And the challenge with that is it is an easy, digestible thing, but you got to go read the full thing. Everybody just salivates over the number and then fights over it.
Should I buy this? Should I put a ton of hours into it? Is it worth replaying or 100%ing? A review score gives us a reference point to begin making evaluations with, just like the fake exam results did for the teachers in the Bloomer study. Let's talk about why those kids that were randomly labeled as gifted grew so much more.
Yeah, in addition, like, people act like a 7 nowadays is a bad score. 7, 8, 9, 10, like any of those scores are a game worthy of your time, right? So like seeing all these people like get mad if somebody gets a 7 or up, it's a little strange to me. 7's a good score. 6 is where like I'm like, all right, well, do I really want to do that? It would have to be like right in my wheelhouse, you know?
Upon receiving the IQ results at the conclusion of the study, the researchers asked the teachers if they treated the Bloomers any differently than the other students. The only difference they reported was spending slightly less time with them. But in follow-up studies similar to this one, researchers found that teachers do in fact treat Bloomers just slightly differently. They create a warmer emotional climate for them, more encouragement, more support, and one-on-one attention. Bloomers get more material, harder material. The teachers give them better feedback and more opportunities to respond in class and longer to respond. In a nutshell, the expectation that these kids are going to be smarter creates a self-fulfilling prophecy.
So his argument is from the study, like it's this one's, you can't really argue with it because he's using material from psychologists and studies and stuff. So it's interesting. He's saying those games that get reviews and they review well will get more attention. I mean, yeah, of course. And then the self-fulfilling prophecy will happen where, oh, you also think it's great because you've already heard it. Somebody thinks it's great.
Where teachers ensure that their preconceptions become reality.
And that's probably why, sorry to keep interrupting the video, that's probably why PR and everybody thinks reviews are so important, because they know this. Maybe it adds up to like 5% more in sales, but it's significant. Interesting.
Which is something that doesn't happen if there are no preconceptions. And look, if you think I'm saying that us consuming reviews for games is just like teachers consuming advanced aptitude tests for students, and that our perceptions of those games are entirely molded by our expectations, then yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. If a game has dazzling reviews, you might give it just a little bit more leniency than you would if that exact same game was surrounded by negative noise.
I wouldn't say you would give it more leniency. I would actually think that you would give it your time. If a game gets a 10, you're probably like, maybe I should buy that game. And that equals money for the publisher or developer, right? And then, surprise, oh, this is a fantastic game. Now you're talking about it, and it's perpetuating. So it is self-fulfilling.
And the reverse is also true. If everyone says it's garbage, you might be less inclined to patience when you're playing it, because even if we don't consciously mean to, those pre-constructed beliefs still influence our perception. And this isn't just conjecture. There's a 2011 study on the impact of negative game reviews and
Okay. The impact of negative game reviews and user comments on player experience. This is from Department of Computer Science, University of Saskatchewan, Canada. Department of Computer Science, so all from the University of Saskatchewan. Game reviews and players' ratings have an effect on the commercial success of games. No duh. They are used extensively by game developers to gauge the success of their titles and by potential buyers to make more informed purchase decisions. Great. However, their potential influence on player experience remains uncertain. We investigated how game reviews and user comments influence players' affective states and experiences during gameplay. We found that both professional reviewers and user comments, especially the negative comments, affected experience measured through game ratings, and that this effect was not mediated by changes in players' moods. Our results are important to the game industry because of meaningful negative effect that user and critic comments can have on individual player experience and the resulting commercial success of a game. Game gets a bad review, people will be more likely to see those negative aspects. People will also be more likely or less likely to purchase the game. Interesting. This is a cool video. This is interesting stuff. Right in my wheelhouse. I love data and stuff like that, so this is cool.
User comments on player experience that found that consuming both professional reviews and user comments, especially the negative ones, affected player experience with those games, even when you control for player mood. And interestingly, the authority of the source did not matter.
Yep. Like, it can be a Twitter post or it can be a thoroughly thought out 3,000 word essay about the review. And it's interesting to hear that it doesn't really matter what the source is.
They found this effect for both. This echoes another 2022 study on online reviews I dug up that found that we are not that great at identifying fake comments and reviews. Regardless of the legitimacy or accuracy of the social information we get,
I'll say this, the best part of reviewing or previewing a game is I have to do it and not look at what anybody else has thought. Or in some instances, I can't. So when I write my review, I always write them and I do not look at other reviews, right? So I get my main written thing done or my main preview done because like there's no other source out there, and I come to my own conclusion and then I put it out there. And that's probably why sometimes I'm like a weird outlier. One of the DLCs I reviewed for like Mass Effect was like the Leviathan DLC, and I remember Dan had a ton of notes for it, and I reviewed it quite highly, and I think I ended up being a bit of an outlier on that one, but I really like that DLC, and yeah, anyway.
We clearly cannot help but be affected by the valence of it. There's even more evidence of that in this 2019 eye tracker study, where researchers were testing the comment section's effect on YouTube videos. Participants were presented videos with either positive or negative comments, and when the groups with only negative comments on their screen chose to read them, they enjoyed the video notably less than those who did not pay attention to the comments or were only presented with positive ones, despite the fact that it was the same video for all groups. What I'm trying to say is, simply seeing a review at all cannot not influence your time.
And that's why don't, especially if you're writing, do not read what anybody else has said about it.
With the game it's about. And no, of course a game is not a child you're trying to teach, but it was impossible for those teachers not to at least subconsciously consider those test results during their time instructing those students, and it is impossible for you to just completely not consider a review during your time with the game. If you are flooded with negativity around it, even if the source of that negativity is
Redfall was pretty bad.
just weird buzz on social media, the source, as we can see,
Doesn't
matter. It plants an expectation, a doubt, a promise, a flaw, a guarantee, even if it's just a tiny one that takes root in your subconscious. And I think many of us realize this to a certain degree, and in turn, actively try to avoid too many reviews. Like a lot of you pointed out, we want to know if a game is broken, but for the most part, many of us find that it's much more of an enjoyable experience when we form our own opinions.
You know, this is a big reason why I don't like doing reviews and why I like doing performance reviews. Performance reviews are a look at the technology in a game and how well or how not well it is performing. Like, how is the frame rate? Is it running at a stable 60 or is it a mess all over the place? That negatively impacts your gameplay experience. And like Michael over at IGN does a ton of that work. He does a great job. I did a few of them when I launched the series back in 2020. I should do some more of those, but like I love stuff like that. I love stuff like Digital Foundry. I love essays like this where it looks at psychological studies and then puts them out there.
With as little information
Like adds the context.
as possible. If the buzz is that it's good, but we don't know exactly why, that's just enough for us to give it an optimistic go, and it's how a great many people find hidden gems. But again, many of us are well aware that reviews strongly affect our time with games,
Yeah.
leaving us in the same shoes as those teachers. Expectations mold experience, and there's... Oh yeah, we need a counter argument, don't we? What if those kids were taught by the people that hate The Last of Us Part 2? What if
What?
they got those exams back and said, bullshit! This child is far from a 10 out of 10, and I refuse to acknowledge that it's canon. I'm really stretching the limits of this metaphor. Do you think these kids would have had the highest IQ scores at the end of the year? Probably not. In fact, the teachers would have likely acted in such a way that confirmed their opinion, an opinion that is in direct conflict with the scores that were given. So if you've ever seen a low review score for a game,
Mirage got a 6?
really didn't want it to be true, and then you felt like that game was actually fantastic when you finally played it, your preconceptions from that review were likely still affecting your time with it. The only difference is it was sort of a self-defeating prophecy.
That's oh wow. So that's really, really interesting. I feel like that happened for a lot of people. Like if you aligned more with a positive review of a game and a negative review came out and you were just like so worked up and you had to like prove that the negative review was wrong and the positive review was right. I think this counter argument happens a lot.
You didn't play the game to enjoy it or see it as it is. You played it to right a wrong, make a point, fulfill your own prophecy.
Yeah. I think that happens a lot online for sure.
You played it looking for evidence to the contrary, being more critical than that reviewer was, being more forgiving than that critic was.
Yeah, like people who like buy Zelda to prove that it's not amazing or something like that, you know? Something like that.
In that moment, you were
discounting the emotion in often extreme video game ratings.
An outlier. And my point still stands. Expectations still shaped your experience, just in the opposite direction of what you were told. To really nail this down, there was a study done last year that found that when
the upside of negative social distance in online reviews of identity relevant brands.
People watched a review and felt like they and the reviewer were alike, in this case the similarity being what NFL team they root for, their purchase intent was lower if they saw a 1-star review than a 5-star review. Sure, makes sense. But when they felt unlike the reviewer, if it was a fan of a different team, the 1-star review generated significantly higher purchase intent than the 5-star review.
That's so funny. That is so crazy. So yeah, find a reviewer who you feel you align with. Like, yeah, that's so crazy that it works.
Essentially, when it's someone you don't identify with or you think has a dramatically different perspective than you, it can actually boost your likelihood to buy the product they are thrashing. And there will obviously always be disagreements about reviews, right? That's what makes them good conversation starters.
Yeah.
There will always be buzz you don't get.
I really like this video. I don't know if the person who sent it in wants me to say, but I really like it. Thank you for sending it in.
There will always be hate for a game that you feel is wildly...
Oh, I keep forgetting to do this. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. I got to remember to do the call out. We're almost at the end of the video. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm probably should have did it earlier.
Unwarranted. The point of me talking about this is not to say that people are just disagreeing to disagree. It's that it's impossible to consume reviews or buzz about a game and it just not affect how you see that game moving forward. And that's not a bad thing. We're social creatures. We want our thoughts to be compared to others, and that's evidenced by a lot of the comments I received saying that many of you actually check reviews for games after you play.
That's what I like to do. Like after I come to my own conclusions, I like to go read the reviews after the fact and, you know, see where it landed. Here's a super hot take. I did the Forspoken preview. You can go watch it. I thought it was really cool. Everybody else hated it. everyone else hated it. I thought it was neat. And yeah, like none of the stuff about the review. I just thought the gameplay was interesting and I was excited about the experience, and then everyone hated
The
it.
poll on
And because everybody hated it, I never went and played the full game. It's like there's a good example, right?
Twitter, and 2/3 of you admitted
Do you often go check a game review once you're finished playing it? Yeah, actually, 64% no.
to doing exactly that because you want to see if your opinions are right.
Yep.
I'm so happy someone actually said this. But there is a kernel of truth to that notion. A lot of times we want validation that we weren't the only ones that enjoyed playing. What did other people like? What did I miss? Did you guys hate this as much as I did? Am I
Yeah.
crazy? Why
What did I miss is a huge reason to go back and watch a review again, especially like a sorry, go watch it again, especially like a good reason to use a wiki, for example. What's going on here?
Why does everyone like this? Why doesn't anyone else like this? Of course, a big part of this is certainly much deeper than is it actually good or bad? Like maybe you just want to hear other people's interpretation of that game, and that's certainly why essay style reviews like what you find here are pretty popular.
I'll tell you this right now. I'm subscribing to that guy's channel. This is cool stuff.
But consuming reviews after you finish games takes that social information and plants it in a healthier spot in time when we are more ready to actually process another person's opinion. I told you a little bit of a half lie earlier. Remember that 2011 study where the reviews affected player enjoyment of a game? Well, the next month they ran it again, this time placing physiological sensors on
Interesting.
gamers when they played.
Did you know, like, before he gets to his point, did you know that anger is like one of the most shareable forms of content? So there was a study done. It's called the Anger Germ. It's still on YouTube. It was made years ago. It has millions of views. And it says the thing more likely to be shared is something that makes you angry or riles up a emotional response in you. And that's why you get a lot of angry content. Anyway, go watch the study. It's a cool study.
Afterwards, the players still reported the same results as before, enjoying games more or less depending on the valence of the review they happened to be assigned. But during play, physiologically, there was no difference. Both groups actually had the same experience, but they remembered them differently.
Interesting.
The researchers proposed that reading reviews does not directly affect play experience, but rather is a post-play cognitive rationalization of the experience with the content
of the review. Our results are important for understanding player experience and to the game industry where reviews and user forums affect a game's commercial success. So the study was done for the exact reasons I thought, so that the games industry could look at the effect of social media and reviews and make a determination here. But it does say it's all your own subconscious biases in your head and how you end up interpreting having read something or having not. But there's no, like, when they say physiological, I imagine like heart rate or something like that.
of the review. Our minds have a need to resolve what is just processed, and often it looks to others to do so. Reviews, opinions, and social commentary help us make sense of what we've just played, but when you consume all of that before doing the actual playing, that rationalization is often made for you, even if it's the same grand.
These are the Mass Effect credits. I just want to give myself, I'm 99.9% sure these are Mass Effect credits. The font gives it away.
Time you would have had without that commentary.
Maybe I'm wrong.
So, what do we make of this? What's the point in knowing this? Do we stop looking at reviews? Do we need to get off social media? Yeah.
I mean, yeah. God, this is a great
To that
video.
last one. But I think, as with most things, we all need to find a healthy balance. I cannot, in good faith, tell you that I think you should stop looking at reviews before you decide whether or not to pick up a title, because it would be extremely hypocritical of you. They are a fantastic resource if you are, as many of you pointed out, on the fence about a game or are looking for something new and exciting. But maybe take what you read with a grain of salt, since there is evidence that we have a hard time distinguishing the quality of what we read before we've played. Find a source you trust and be aware that there are emotionally charged outliers out there. Remember that even if you try to ignore them, simply seeing them in the timeline or on a review board will mold your time with the game ever so slightly.
I'm guilty of that. Like, if a game just like Forspoken is a great example, it just was all over the place and everybody was hitting on it. So I just didn't spend any time playing it. I'm like, I have too big of a back catalog. There's too many other great games. And absolutely, you should always come to your own conclusion.
So maybe if it's a game you're excited to try, stay away from social media the week or so before it comes out, and then gauge opinions once you're done.
Yeah.
The point of this was to simply say that reviews affect you more than you think.
Huh.
Even if you don't talk about it, there's probably a game or two out there that you really like or would have liked that other people have convinced you is actually bad. Or maybe it's vice versa, you don't actually.
Should I go play Forspoken? You know what another example is that comes to my mind? Death Stranding. Death Stranding is that game when somebody describes it and they're like, it's a walking simulator or it's like you're mailing packages. It's not really fun. I said, you know what? I've loved every Kojima game. I'm not going to listen to all that. A lot of people, I made a joke or something once and everybody got all mad at me. They're like, you didn't finish it. I'm like, I played the intro. Anyway, I went back and I played it and I love that game. I actually think Death Stranding is a wonderful game. It really spoke to me. I really, really went hard through, I think, Act 3 or whatever, and I built all the highways and everything, and I ended up enjoying it quite a bit. Maybe I need to do the same for Forspoken. I definitely need to finish Starfield. Anyway.
Like it that much, but it's still a masterpiece though, somehow. Expectations are unshakable in some ways, but I think that being aware of their effect on you can help you better understand how to manage them and get the most out of reviews. We can't play anything in a vacuum, but don't let too many other opinions get in until you're good and ready. Just go play that shit, baby. Enjoy yourself. Or hate every second of it. It's up to you. Just make sure that it really is up to you.
That's right. Great stuff.
What's up, Chief? I hope you enjoyed this one. If you're new here, I do a video like this every month, and if you happen to miss this video
I am
posted about a year ago,
subscribing.
you've arrived at a great time. Essentially, I made a video explaining how I would tackle my backlog in 1 year's time, and next month, it's finally time to cover what happened, if I finished it, what I've learned, and maybe how you can do the same
Wow, he's got a lot of,
so be sure to go
are those
check that out if
Patreons
you
or
missed it,
members?
and if you didn't, go give it another watch to recap. If you like what you see here and want to support the show, give my Patreon a look.
I don't know who Daryl Talks Games is, but that was a wonderful video. Thank you, whoever sent it. I think it was Nerd something. I don't know if they want me to say their name. Anyway, thank you for sending it in. Thank you, Daryl, for making the video. I really like that one. What do you think about reviews? Has this video changed how you will consume reviews or review content? Let me know in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, hit that like button if you like this video. I'm going to link out to Daryl Talks Games in the comments below. This whole reacts thing has been a lot of fun. I get exposed to like new content. So if you see something that you want to send me, you can send it to the Destin channel at gmail.com, or you can send it to @DestinLegarie on Twitter via DM, and I will check it out. I've gotten a few other ones that like didn't really make sense for the format, but I do appreciate it. Thank you to the members for supporting this channel. I really do appreciate you. If you want to become a member, click that join button right down there. Ding. I'm gonna get out of here. Here's my previous reacts. I think it was I reacted to Ardred's piece, which there was some framing that I didn't agree with, but check it out. Bye for now, everybody. See you for the next one.